Animals scream this loud only in one case, when they end up in traps set by nature. Whirlpool, a funnel that emerges on the surface of the water and can suck in everything that happens to be around. Plants, mammals, reptiles, insects, birds. Getting into a powerful whirlpool means putting your life in danger. It's like falling from the 18th floor under the strong pressure of water coming from above. Whirlpools make no exception for humans or animals. What could possibly be more dangerous than that? A damn double whirlpool! Massive eddies in the ocean spanning hundreds of miles sometimes merge to form modons. They're much larger and 10 times faster than single whirlpools. They also rotate in opposite directions. Modons easily suck in marine animals and can move them over great distances. Unfortunately, they're not yet studied well enough to estimate how good this way of traveling is. For a fish, getting into a modon might be like buying an express ticket, or maybe it's like traveling in an elevator car, rolling down a mountain while on fire. But you can encounter a whirlpool not only in the ocean or in the sea. Of course, the most powerful ones are found only there, but the water can suddenly turn into a death trap almost anywhere. In a narrow strait, in the big lake, even in the river. And you know what? I didn't find any information about whether you can somehow predict the appearance of a whirlpool without special equipment and prolonged observation. But what if you're, say, a duck who decided to swim in the lake for a while? Seems like even animal instincts can't tell when death is imminent. Okay, then maybe there is some kind of universal way of escape. Well, the most effective strategy for escaping the whirlpool is not to get caught in one. However, there have been experiments to see what happens to a medium-sized pumpkin sucked into a vortex. It popped out, though in a completely unexpected place, on the other side of the road. But what if it's really possible to survive in the whirlpool? For example, if you're a waterfowl, or a frog, or a pumpkin. In short, a creature that can survive without oxygen for a long time. And then I realized I still hadn't figured out the most important question: how do whirlpools form? Well, most often this happens when two opposing currents meet, causing the water to rotate. It's like stirring liquid in a glass, only nature doesn't have a giant spoon. A whirlpool can also occur if the water moves in different directions due to strong winds. Many whirlpools are not very large, so swimmers can resist the force pulling them down, but some are so huge they can even pull a ship underwater. And I'm not talking about those oceanic double whirlpools now. On November 20th, 1980, a disaster happened on the American Payneer Lake, resulting in a colossal whirlpool. The drill of the oil rig accidentally punctured the roof of a salt mine under the lake, and water rushed down. It quickly expanded the 14-inch drill hole, creating a huge crater. It swallowed a drilling platform, 11 supply barges, a tugboat, many trees, and an estimated 65 acres of the surrounding terrain. According to some reports, the whirlpool also sucked in the ship's dock, an island with botanical garden, houses, trucks, and as if that were not enough, the air displaced by water turned into geysers up to 400 feet high. A few days after the disaster, when the water pressure equalized, 9 of the 11 sunken barges popped out of the whirlpool and refloated to the surface of the lake. Fortunately, there were no casualties. There were no people on the barges. And although this whirlpool was not natural, just think about how treacherous water can be. A second ago, that was a quiet lake, and in a moment, it starts looking like a disaster movie. Water can be deceiving even when there's very little of it. Take, for example, wet asphalt after rain. This is a usual phenomenon for humans, and it doesn't pose any danger to them. Ducks are a different story, though. In Pennsylvania, a long-tailed duck crash-landed right on the asphalt, all because the bird mistook the wet, smooth asphalt for the surface of the lake and did what it used to do: plunged into it. I even found out that the legs of the long-tailed duck are located on the sides of its body because they're mostly unable to walk. They only swim and fly. No wonder the poor bird was not ready to face the asphalt. This is not its element, but the water ruined everything. Finally, a vacation. I'm about to have a good rest and swim. Oh, here's the lake. However, you don't have to use wet asphalt to confuse a migratory bird. New York is considered one of the most dangerous cities for birds for a reason. And no, not because of rats, ecology, or property prices. Too much glass and nightlight. City lights can confuse birds, so they get completely lost in space and crash into buildings. This also happens during the day, when birds see the reflection of the sky in the glass facades of buildings, and since the sky is ahead, it means you can fly there. What do you mean, you can't? According to the estimates, between 100 million and 1 billion birds collide with buildings in the United States each year. more than 90,000 of them in New York City. In the best-case scenario, they can survive this collision, but more often than not, it turns out to be fatal. To somehow fix this terrible situation, people decided to limit the amount of glass in construction. Although sometimes just turning off the light also helps. Sounds weird, but it really works. Birds that fly at night often navigate by familiar natural light sources, and when there are too many of them, well, imagine you have 15 navigators around you, which simultaneously give completely different directions, and you also can't turn them off. And you can't cover your ears either. You're a bird. In short, anyone will get confused. That's why people have to do something about it. A study in Chicago revealed that even turning off the lights in one building reduced the number of killed birds by an average of 83%. You have to admit, it's difficult to argue with such statistics. But even if we turn off the lights every night, it'll still deceive and injure animals. This time, the moonlight is to blame. Back in 2007, a study was published which said domestic cats and dogs are more likely to be injured and get sick during the full moon. I'm not talking about 1 or 2 cases. The researchers found that on days near the full moon, cat owners visit the emergency room 23% more often, and dog owners 28%. The reasons were very different, and you know what? Scientists can't explain why this happens. If you have any theories, share them in the comments. We'll help the scientific community. Usually, the full moon is associated more with werewolves who can't hold back and start biting everything they see. It's strange to take such stories seriously, but what if I say there's some scientific evidence for that? Cats, dogs, rats, and even horses bite people more often during the full moon. Such conclusions were made by scientists who analyzed the number of visits to the hospital over 2 years. In all, 1,621 patients were bitten by animals, and the vast majority of the bites happened on a full moon. So the moon is kind of forcing animals to attack humans. Well, even people become more aggressive on a full moon. In any case, both police officers and scientists note that crime rates rise exactly during this period of the lunar cycle, and often those are violent crimes. Police officers from various countries and cities agree with this statement. Also, scientific statistics confirm their experience. True, there is still no solid scientific explanation for that. Not enough research, too small selection. Actually, leave the law enforcement officers alone. Don't interfere with work. In order to somehow counter the moon-induced crime, in some places, police forces even intensify patrols. You can say they're creating lunar detachments of police officers to guard the peace of the citizens in the name of the moon. I'm telling you, that light is a very treacherous thing. Although most likely the reason lies in some magnetic fields, ebbs, and flows, still my point stands. While some animals are affected by light so much that it drives them crazy, makes them aggressive, injures, and even kills them, cockroaches learned to deceive nature. They literally learned to accumulate light in order to see in the dark, and also look through time. I wouldn't be surprised if soon these small pests will start moving around in a blue police booth or something. But let me explain how this works. Cockroaches are actually superheroes, or rather supervillains. Some species can hold their breath for 40 minutes, others can survive a nuclear explosion, feed on paper and dried glue, or live without a head for weeks. But if you had to deal with cockroaches, you probably noticed they also manage to live even in complete darkness. Turns out that in order to do this, cockroaches have learned to see as if in a time-lapse mode. To find this out, scientists had to create something like VR goggles for cockroaches. But how this gadget works doesn't matter. What's important is that the insect can perceive only 1 photon of light every 10 seconds, like on a moonless night. This photon doesn't actually help you see anything, but cockroaches came up with a brilliant idea. They accumulate this photon. You might say they remember a part of the image they were able to identify. They collect light to use it later. Over the next 10 seconds, they get a new photon and a new image. It's like taking a long exposure photo. Well, you know, when instead of a light bulb, you get a luminous line that follows its movement. This way, cockroaches can survive even in pitch black darkness and even find their way. Yes, with some delay, but hey, has anyone else even thought of this?